5 months pregnant, Dora Llosa's husband Ernesto Vargas convinced her to go to Arequipa to join her parents, promising to follow soon. But it was all a lie, a promise he never intended to keep. Ernesto disappeared without a trace. On March 28, 1936, at 22, and still in despair, Dora gave birth to her only son, Jorge Mario Pedro Vargas Llosa. Being a single mother back then not only meant facing the hardships of life, but also the disapproval and relentless judgment of a conservative society. So her father, Pedro Llosa, little Mario's grandfather, made a final decision to move with the whole family to Cochabamba, Bolivia. There, he would manage a cotton plantation and could, at least for a while, find peace, and he wasn't wrong. Those early years passed peacefully, and Mario was able to enjoy a healthy and protected childhood, woven with calm and uneventful days. In 1945, 9 years later, the Llosa family chose to return to Peru, but settled in Piura, the warm, fertile region in the country's north, instead of Arequipa. There, Mario began to discover a Peru previously unknown to him. He enrolled in the Salesian school for 5th grade. Gradually, he adapted, especially after meeting his future best friend, Javier Silva Ruete, and everything seemed to fall back into place for little Mario, without imagining. The prelude to a great storm, one that would change his world forever. Mario Vargas Llosa had grown up with an idealized image of his father, a man he never met, but who lived in his world as a memory. Trapped in that photograph resting on his nightstand, he believed he was in heaven. He prayed to him nightly until one morning his mother revealed a truth that ruined everything. That man in the photo hadn't died. He was alive and even more, ready to meet him.
It's the core trauma of my life. Everything changed for me from that moment.
But the worst was yet to come. The meeting was a disappointment from the start. His father didn't look like the one in the portrait, and his gaze, far from being warm, was cold and distant. They told him they would go for a ride in the car, but after a few turns around the city, Ernesto took the highway and kept going. Mario grew suspicious, and within hours they confessed the truth to him. They were going to Lima, or rather, they were fleeing there. "What are the grandparents going to say?" asked Mario. "Isn't a son supposed to live with his father?" answered Ernesto, as Vargas Llosa later wrote in The Fish in the Water, 1993. This event transformed his life. He went from a spoiled child in a loving family to enduring a bitter, abusive, authoritarian father. Mario was beaten and sometimes listened through the door as his mother was beaten too. This must have also broken his heart, leaving an indelible resentment inside him. The resurrected man had taken away the mother he knew before. They were inseparable. Now an evil stranger slept with her.
I discovered fear with my father. I don't think I had ever felt fear before. Fear of a person, physical fear. I think no one had ever hit me before. Maybe my father would give me a little knock on the head or pull my ear, but no one had ever really hit me, and my father hit me for the first time. I was so scared of my father that I often went to bed early, clothes still on, whenever I heard him coming home. So I wouldn't have to see him, so I wouldn't have to live through the enormous tension I felt with him.
These were Mario Vargas Llosa's hardest years, spent in Lima with his parents in Magdalena del Mar. Oppressed in thoughts, tastes, and attitudes, it must have been torture, so he sought escape through reading. He first encountered it while exploring his grandfather's library in Cochabamba, but this happened in Lima. Sheltered in bed, Mario lost himself in the pages and adventures of Verne, Salgari, and Dumas, imagining new worlds and alternate realities. Occasionally, he could escape the sad reality that had entered his life like an unexpected, unfair curse. Fortunately, he found another escape at his maternal uncle and aunt's house in Miraflores, at Colón and Diego Ferré. Mario anxiously awaited the arrival of each weekend to take refuge there. In that place, he felt he could be free again, sheltered by the warmth of his uncle, aunt, and cousins Nancy and Gladys. He found a second family he enjoyed belonging to. He would also make many friends and be part of a neighborhood, a group, a little gang of his age. With them, he began exploring adolescent rights, learning to dance, drink, smoke, dream by the sea, play hide and seek, and fall in love. This stage of discovery in his life would later inspire him to write one of his most famous stories, The Puppies, from 1967. During those years, Mario was already dreaming of writing and creating alternate worlds and distant realities. Just like those European writers he read with such fascination.
My salvation was reading good books, taking refuge in those worlds where I could live. It was exhilarating, intense, one adventure after another, where I could feel free and be happy again.
But his father was tormented by his early love of novels and poetry. Ernesto, bound by machismo's ignorance and prejudice, feared it could lead his son into bohemianism and homosexuality. So, thinking of preventing that from happening, he decided to take him out of La Salle School and sent him to attend third year of secondary school at Leoncio Prado. That military school, known for its barracks-like oppressive rigor, was run by military men. Mario would experience the harshness of violence and discrimination, authoritarianism, corruption, and inequality. Would he grasp Peru's textures and the injustices present in those years?
There were young people from all social classes. There were white people, black people, indigenous people, mestizos, Japanese, Chinese. It was a Peruvian society in miniature. It was very instructive, showing real life and the real country.
Though the first months were tough, Mario found his place there. At first, they nicknamed him Bugs Bunny because of the size of his teeth. Later, they would call him the Poet, since, confined in that place, Mario would begin his career as a professional writer, earning money by writing letters to his companions' girlfriends and creating erotic novels to motivate them, thus capturing his first readers.
He had white, fat, hairless legs. While he nibbled them and ran his hands over them, Eleodora screamed with pleasure.
Don't be so impatient, Rulos. It's not ready yet.
Nothing.
We'll buy it from you, Poet. But you wouldn't get paid in coins, you'd get paid in cigarettes. Deal? This allowed him to mask his true desires with a facade of manliness, which was judged and frowned upon at the time. To dream of being a writer? So cigarettes, pornographic novels, and love letters were the perfect alibi to keep doing it without being judged, and on the contrary, to be admired and encouraged. This sparked Mario's craft, igniting a passion that would last for years. His father, Ernesto, enrolled him in Leoncio Prado to steer him from those hobbies. Without suspecting that his son's talent would make its way to conquer any ground he inhabited, even the most hostile ones, like that famous school, made even more famous after Mario chose it as the setting for his first great work, perhaps the most important one, The Time of the Hero, published in 1963. But there were still many years and much suffering to go before that day. He finished military school, returned in 1950-1951, and by summer 1952, before his 5th year of high school, his father unknowingly set him on his path again by getting him his first job. While working as a radio operator for a news service, Ernesto helped his son get a job at La Cronica newspaper. There, Mario had a short but intense stay, taking part in investigations, police cases, murders of prostitutes, disappearances, and kidnappings. Being part of the editorial team, signing his first articles, collaborating with experienced journalists and editors, and becoming friends with them, despite his youth. The bohemian nightlife of that profession in the 1950s captivated Mario, who enjoyed the job, but also what came afterward, especially those long conversations about poetry, authors, and politics that grew more intense with drinks and alternated between brothels, cafes, and noisy bars, mainly one called La Catedral, which years later would inspire the title of another of his great books, Conversation in the Cathedral, published in 1969. But Mario Vargas Llosa's nighttime adventures as a teenager, beginning in 1952, they didn't last long, as Ernesto angrily came to the newspaper after learning of his son's drinking and nightlife, declared he wouldn't return, and forced him to quit. At this point, father and son surely couldn't stand each other anymore, nor did they want to be near each other. Maybe that's why Ernesto agreed to the request, and unlike the rest of the Llosa clan, spent his 5th year of high school in Piura, far from him and Leoncio Prado. To nearly everyone's surprise, Ernesto agreed, and Mario was finally able to return to his real family, from whom he had been taken at 11 and who still longed for him. Of course, his mother still missed him a lot. He was with his grandparents Pedro and Carmen, his uncle Lucho, Aunt Olga, and cousins Wanda and Patricia. He lived one of his most wonderful times, meeting up with several dear friends from elementary school, among them Javier Silva Ruete, his closest and lifelong friend. But 5 years had passed and they were no longer children. Their interests had changed. Now they enjoyed talking about books, going out with girls, going to the movies, and to the theater. When they had enough money, they eagerly visited the city's most exclusive brothel, which would later inspire his second novel, The Greenhouse, in 1966. That year, several significant events would occur for Mario, perhaps the most important. It started the day he found out that during the anniversary week of Piura, in the month of June, his school, San Miguel, organized a show that was sometimes a play. Mario confidently asked his principal to lead the show. That year, a play he had written himself called The Flight of the Inca.
So Mario went to the principal and said, "Sir, I can put on a play, but not just any play," and he showed him The Flight of the Inca.
He assured him he could direct it, promised all would go well, and kept his word. The play was a box office hit at the Variedades Theater, with full seats and a buzzing hall. And when Mario came out to say goodbye to her, he experienced for the first time the magic of a theater hall, surrendering to him. Since that day, Mario keeps a piece of the program from his first play in his wallet as a lucky charm. Maybe to keep tangible the memory of the first day he felt like a real writer.
It was an experience that made me feel like I was already a writer, that I had already arrived in literature. So that year, well, yes, I started living a bit like a writer.
That 5th year of high school was a great year for him. Because of that, he began to believe he could achieve his dream, unaware the journey would be long and filled with obstacles. Fortunately, Mario has no idea, so he moves forward and gets a new job, similar to the one his father forced him to leave, this time at the newspaper La Industria de Piura. There he found the freedom to publish short poems, articles inspired by his own experiences. That's why, every afternoon after leaving class, as he walked to the newspaper, he felt that he could finally be happy again. He freely pursued his passions with no restrictions or opposition, quite the opposite. He lived in a warm environment full of father figures, especially his beloved Uncle Lucho, a man completely different from his father. He was intelligent, understanding, modern, tolerant, and he loved him very much. He encouraged him to read and also to write, to tirelessly pursue that dream, no matter what others said. Back then, few fathers would do that, especially for an uncertain, disapproved, and unprofitable career like literature. But luckily, Mario found in Lucho the father he always needed, a figure of support and encouragement, a mentor, a confidant. He had taught him how to swim when he was little, and now he was teaching him how to be a man, to face life and whatever his heart demanded of him.
My father has always been a very flexible person, very open, who encouraged him. In his reading, Mario was already an avid reader, and so my father encouraged him a lot in his reading. In the act of starting to write in...
Mario found many good books in his Uncle Lucho's library, but none impressed him like La Noche. Left behind was the autobiography of Jean Baltin, who recounted his risky and courageous life as a communist during the darkest years of Nazism. Baltin's heroism awakened in Mario a strong sense of social justice, a flame that would soon ignite in his own reality. He was about to graduate from San Miguel's school when he led a rebellion and strike against a resolution he found unjust and oppressive, which almost got him expelled for good. This event would leave an indelible mark on his conscience and would inspire him years later to write the story that would become fundamental to his career, The Bosses, 1959. This experience and his reading that year led Mario to reflect on the Odria dictatorship and the repression, injustices, and abuses in his country. During his search, he started falling for the ideas of communism. That's why, after finishing high school, he applied to Lima's most popular and politicized university, the Universidad Mayor de San Marcos, to study law and join leftist movements, just like many young intellectuals of his generation would do, who saw Marxism as the only effective tool to fight inequality and abuses of power. Years later, of course, Mario would stop sympathizing with this ideology, but during his years at San Marcos, he defended it enthusiastically. He was part of communist university factions, the Federated Center of Letters, and small secret groups briefly nicknamed Comrade Alberto. But it wasn't the conflicts that truly marked Mario during his time at San Marcos, but rather his history classes, or more precisely the professor who taught them. Raúl Porras Barrenechea, Peru's former ambassador to Spain, impressed him from his first lectures. He was the most elegant and eloquent speaker he knew. His thorough personal research inspired Mario's passion for Peruvian history, making him the class's top student. That's why after giving him the highest grade, Porras invited him to work for him, and it lasted almost 5 years, where, for 4 hours, Monday to Friday, Mario was nourished by one of his most influential teachers, learning a methodology that would shape him as a writer. Perhaps no one had as much influence as Porras Barrenechea on the way Mario Vargas Llosa would later approach each of his books. Porras was meticulous in his investigations and allowed no margin for error. The search needed to be deep, intense, patient, and precise for every piece of data, text, and word. A different, exhaustive, and detailed demand for quality. This process taught Mario that the truth had to be conquered with rigor and patience, and made him a perfectionist.
And perhaps the best education I received, since I didn't get it in the classes at San Marcos, but in the house of Raúl Porras, the most elegant and eloquent speaker I have ever known. I was so impressed by Porras's classes that at some point I even came to think about pursuing history instead of literature.
In May 1955, another event changed Mario's life forever. A plane lands in Lima from La Paz, Bolivia, and from it descends a beautiful and refined woman named Julia Urquidi Llanes. Julia was Aunt Olga's sister, Uncle Lucho's sister-in-law, but that didn't stop Mario from being smitten when he saw her, and even more so when he got to know her.
What boy doesn't fall for a young, beautiful, and charming woman? So it was a rather, let's say, intense and quick passion.
Everyone says that Julia was a woman of dazzling beauty and overwhelming personality, intelligent, cultured, and hardworking. She had served as secretary to top Bolivian military officers, including President René Barrientos. These experiences had given her an elegant bearing and a mastery of social diplomacy that made her even more fascinating. She appeared younger than her age, while Mario, tall, thin, handsome, and with a mature literary air, seemed older. The mutual attraction developed quickly, first at family gatherings, and then during innocent outings to the movies and walks on the beach. There, they discuss themselves, their dreams and perspectives, hold hands, and start to experience what it's like to play with fire. Julia resists and sometimes realizes her actions. Mario appears grown up, but he's a minor. He has 2 years until he turns 21 and becomes a citizen. She's about 30. If everyone finds out, the world will collapse and they both know it. But it's already too late to hide. There's no need for them to confess it. It's obvious and ends up being clear to the whole family. God speaks seriously with Julia, asks her to return home, and she considers it. She agrees, but Mario refuses. He can't bear to lose her, so in desperation he asks her to run away with him, leave Lima, and secretly marry. After that, they would have no choice but to accept it. It was madness, but Julia's recklessness was exactly what made Mario fall in love with her. So they traveled to Chincha and managed to get a mayor to marry them with fraudulent documents. They stayed at a hostel and finally were able to make love for the first time.
So we ended up getting married in secret, in a rather picturesque way as well. Almost melodramatic, scandalous.
Imagine the arrogant young man, the brain of the family, marries a woman 10 years older and divorced. She was definitely not the ideal for the whole family above all. My father-in-law reacted in a very, very violent way. He wanted to kill me. He kicked me out of Peru. He exiled me to Chile.
Mario faced the world so he could live by his wife's side. Not only her father, who ended up reporting her for corrupting a minor, but also the obligations that come with married life. He had to start working tirelessly, even holding up to 7 jobs at the same time, all while finishing his degree at San Marcos. One of the jobs, of course, was still at his professor's house. He got another one at a radio station, at the library of the National Club, writing chronicles, directing reports, and even recording the oldest graves at the Presbítero Maestro Cemetery. Thanks to Porras, Barrenechea got into Radio Panamericana. There, he would meet 2 fundamental people, 2 kindred spirits, Luis Loaiza and Abelardo Oquendo, the friends that literature gave him. Mario was accomplishing it with great effort. His life finally made sense as his grandparents, uncles, and cousins gradually came together. Llosa were beginning to notice and accept that the love between Marito and Aunt Julia was real. At last he could be happy with the woman he loved, but one problem troubled him. He no longer had time to write, at least not what he wanted, nor the time required to create, as he dreamed. He dreamed of writing novels, but he deeply felt that it wouldn't be possible here in Peru, not for him. He felt that he was destined to do it. In Paris, the capital of art, the land of great writers and poets, artists whom Mario had been inspired by all his life. He dreamed of walking through its streets, filled with the spirit of Flaubert, Camus, Sartre. He dreamed of living what they had lived and in the places that had witnessed it. Paris became an obsession for him and his close friends Loaiza Oquendo and Silva Ruete. With the latter, they even opened a joint account to save money, to feel that in some way their dreams were beginning to take shape. Meanwhile, Julia was willing to follow him to the ends of the earth, if necessary. She blindly trusted her young husband and his talent that had yet to be realized. Then, things started to happen. Mario entered a short story contest held by a Parisian magazine where the prize was a tangible dream. A 15-day trip to that city with a stay at the Hotel Napoleon and all expenses paid. Mario eagerly submitted a story called The Challenge, which years later became part of his first short story, The Bosses. And one afternoon, his friend Luis Loaiza rushed into Radio Panamericana, stood up, and gave him the best news of all. He had won. It was the most important moment in his life up to that point, and perhaps no other would ever awaken such euphoria in him again. Mario Vargas Llosa has traveled hundreds of times, but says he has forgotten most of them over time. But to remember every detail of that first trip to Paris, many times high expectations can ruin reality, but in this case, it wasn't like that. Paris turned out just as he had dreamed, just as his imagination had promised him, and it confirmed that his destiny was there. After 2 weeks, his uncle Lucho Llosa sent him $1,000 and paid for 2 extra weeks at the Hotel Napoleon, from whose windows you could see the Arc de Triomphe. Uncle Lucho had sincerely urged his nephew not to abandon his dream of becoming a writer, to pursue it until he achieved it, and Mario promised him he would. Upon returning to Lima, all he could think about was leaving again, so he finished his degree. His thesis was on Rubén Darío. Following Raúl Porras' advice, he applied for a postgraduate scholarship at the Complutense University of Madrid. Barrenechea, Peru's former ambassador to Spain, assisted him in applying and obtaining it. Mario couldn't believe it. He would live in Madrid for at least the length of the scholarship, but his heart said it wouldn't be temporary. He said goodbye to his family and at 22 years old set out with his wife on the adventure he had always dreamed of. No Peruvian writer in Europe lives off novel sales. Mario knows it, but even so, he goes and tries. Julia trusts him. They arrive in the city in October 1958, but things aren't going so well over there. Still overshadowed by the post-war era, Madrid's literary movement is weak and not avant-garde. But the scholarship gives him $120 a month, enough to live in the small boarding house at 12 Dr. Castello. He goes to the Complutense in the mornings, to the National Library in the afternoons, and some nights to the Jute. It's just 2 blocks from his house where he started writing about the city and the dogs. All the effort, his whole life, came down to that moment, to that instant when finally he was able to give free rein to his deepest desire. In that exercise, he confirmed what he'd always known, a truth that would forever ignite his life. Writing is the most exciting thing, and he can't or won't stop now. So he starts doing it every day methodically, consistently with sacrifice, until he also discovers that in reality, it isn't. It wasn't that simple. Mario was passionate and disciplined, but also a relentless perfectionist, never satisfied and tormented by his own standards. Most of the time, he wrote drafts that he didn't like the next day. He doubted the facts, the dates, found unfinished plots, things that weren't enough, small cracks and inconsistencies in his characters' backgrounds, in the truth of his own story. He started over. Julia encouraged him, helped with typing, and made clean copies of each draft. Meanwhile, Mario shifted between creative blocks and bursts of inspiration. He would write 12 pages in a row, then doubt all of them. But the problem was bigger than that. Mario started doubting himself, his prose, ideas, and ability to achieve the dream that brought him there. Doubting what you write is one of the worst punishments for a writer, so sentenced by his own judgment, Mario lost faith in his talent. He believed it was just a fantasy, and that his future lay not in Europe, but in Lima. Maybe as a reporter, librarian, or journalist for some media outlet. He decides to stop writing, but not to stop trying to be a writer. At that time, he learned of the 1958 Leopoldo Alas Prize, and, as a last attempt, submitted The Leaders, a story he had written in Lima and previously used to secure his first trip to Paris. And against all his expectations, as if it were fate, he wins first place, which included a prize of 5,000 pesetas. But above all, it gave him a motivational boost that encouraged him to sit down once again in front of his typewriter and fight for the only thing that keeps him alive. This time, with more ferocity and discipline, he won't stop. He writes 5 to 6 hours daily during his final doctorate year. It's a big effort, but Mario feels pressed for time, since along with the scholarship, the funding will also end. He applies for another one to go to Paris, but the results take time, forcing him to choose: return to Lima or use his ticket money to chase his dream. That's how, in November 1959, Mario Vargas Llosa arrived with his wife Julia to the art capital, the avant-garde war, and the romance of great writers, poets, and philosophers, to the city where its greatest idols were born. He arrives with little money, and after a few days, the scholarship is denied. The struggle to survive is back, and he must do whatever it takes to get by. He gathered newspapers to sell at the student union and ate in its cafeterias, as they were the cheapest. He did small translations, journalistic collaborations, and sometimes worked as a ghostwriter, drafting texts for authors or researchers who would later sign them with their own names. All that's needed to survive and write. For Mario, these two things now meant the same, especially as the day arrived when the money ran out.
I spoke with the woman who owned the little hotel where we lived in the Latin Quarter, and she told me, well, I'm not going to kick you out of the hotel. I am going to move you to the cheapest little room, which was practically on the roof, and I will allow you to cook.
Mario's journey was intense, filled with challenges and sacrifices. He had to sell a piece of land he owned in Lima in order to survive, until he was finally able to get some steady jobs. Spanish teacher at Berlitz, journalist for France Press's Spanish section, and announcer for French radio and television, hosting a program about literature aimed at Latin America. And while he was doing this, he kept on writing. He also worked on expanding his network of contacts, connecting with a literary circle that led him to meet great Latin American authors, such as Julio Cortázar. Things started getting better for Mario, who finally, in 1961, was able to move into a small apartment on Trunon Street in the 6th District, together with Aunt Julia. And that same year, his cousin Patricia arrived from Lima, daughter of his beloved Uncle Lucho, niece of his wife and the one he would end up marrying 4 years later. But well, that's another interesting and long story, he says. If you would like to see it on this channel, and if you're enjoying the video, I invite you to subscribe and give it a like. But let's not get sidetracked, because this story is about what would happen that night in January 1962. It took almost 4 years. He had started it at 22 and was 26 when he finally managed to finish writing his first novel. But it wasn't the end of the road. He had to face a new journey, finding a publisher willing to publish it. Mario sends it to Ruedo Iberico, then to Lozada, and to many more. facing rejection from all of them, but the one from Juilliard Publishing House was without a doubt the most painful. They claimed it was a crude, poor, boring novel with no literary quality. Faced with this devastating criticism, Mario felt that all was lost. But even so, he doesn't give up. He asks favors from every friend and contact he ever made. Thinking about increasing his chances for this second stage, Salazar Bond and Julio Cortázar help him by sending and recommending the novel to trusted publishers. He even starts looking in Lima, but no one is interested in publishing the novel. All the responses are negative, which demoralizes Mario more and more.
We had no editor friends or editors. They came later.
Until one of his friends, Claude Cuffon, suggests sending it to the Say Barral Publishing House in Barcelona. He had tried dozens of times, with his faith intact, but sending it to a Spanish publishing house. Within a country repressed by censorship that Mario knew well, it wasn't very encouraging. 8 to 10 months passed without a response. Until one morning in September 1962, Carlos Barral read the novel and sent a telegram to Mario. And inside it was perhaps the most important message of his life. Magnificent book. Don't sell to anyone. I'll be at the Port Royal Hotel in Paris on the 12th. Look for me. Mario met that afternoon with Carlos Barral, who was fascinated with the novel, while its author no longer believed in it. The bad comments and rejections had ruined his confidence and appreciation for the work he had bet on. He now felt resentful toward everything, viewing it as juvenile and mediocre. He requested time to improve it, but Barral disagreed and refused any changes. He knew they faced Francoist censorship in Spain, but he had a plan if they submitted it to the Biblioteca Breve Prize and won. The censorship office would have to accept it. On December 2, 1962, Julia gets a letter at home. She skims it and rushes to French radio and television, heart pounding. She breaks down suddenly. Seeing her husband, she throws herself at him, hugs him tight, and they both cry. Mario has won the Biblioteca Breve Prize decisively, with a unanimous decision from the jury, for the first time in the history of this award. The novel was submitted to the censorship office in February 1963. 9 days later, the council issues a report concluding as follows. Because of the lascivious delight with which the author delves into the details of a foul juvenile depravity, should the publication of the work be prohibited? Good news is followed by another devastating blow. These seem never-ending, but Mario has come too far and he's no longer alone. If he didn't give up before, he won't now. In March, they sent her back for another evaluation. De gracia. The new report takes more than a month to arrive and concludes that it will be necessary to modify texts on 37 pages if it is to be published. Does it still seem like too much to you? Mario Vargas Llosa and Carlos Barral travel to Madrid and after a tense, lengthy meeting with Robles Piquer, secure permission to publish. The Time of the Hero. With changes in just 7 paragraphs and removing the dedication to Julio Cortázar because of Francoist government references, the work remained subdued, but not defeated. They tried to censor it, to mutilate it, but destiny was written the right way. Mario would achieve his dream.
He is an extraordinary example of a great worker. Garcia Marquez said being a writer takes 90% perspiration and 10% inspiration. That's the example of Mario, what it means to be a hard worker in literature.
He had dreamed of it and cultivated it throughout his whole life. He began in '58 at the modest Madrid bar El Jute and finished in his Paris apartment in January '62. After a long struggle, he published it in November 1963 with help from Say Barral in Barcelona. Some say that good things are worth waiting for, and this story proves it. The novel is an instant success, an unprecedented literary boom. It wins the Critics' Prize, and in Spain, 25,000 copies are printed, which sell out quickly. The news reaches Lima. The book also sparks outrage among the authorities at Leoncio Prado School, who consider the novel defamatory and extremist. So, in an act of fury, they throw dozens of copies into the flames. It's a rumor without evidence, but even so, the news spreads throughout Spain, achieving fabulous marketing. Curiosity did the rest. Thousands of readers were drawn in by the controversy, and after reading the first pages, they were hooked and started recommending it. The success is so great that Carlos Barral sells the copyright to French, then to English, Italian, German, Dutch, Finnish, Russian, Hungarian, and Swedish. And it begins to spread throughout Latin America, selling out in every country.
The City of Dogs is the first modern novel written in Spanish in America. There is no doubt about that.
The boom that people talk about, the Latin American boom, in my view, begins with the City of Dogs.
Not Borges, not anyone. That is to say, it was the city and the dogs that triggered a surprise, but not only in the field of language, but also a surprise in Europe.
Mario dreamed all his life of being a writer, and finally he had achieved it, even though his father was horrified by the idea and forbade him to dream of becoming one. Or maybe because of that, despite having been sent to a military school, marrying his aunt at 19 and juggling 7 jobs at once? Or maybe, pushed by that pressure, Vargas Llosa went through darkness, experienced discouragement, defeat, and was close to giving up. But he never did, and that's why he made it. Many people helped him along the way. His uncle Lucho, Professor Porras, Carlos Barral, Carmen Balces, Julio Urquidi, Patricia Llosa, and so many others who, in one way or another, played a part in Mario becoming the great writer that I am. But the absolute credit is entirely his. And of little Mario, that boy who never stopped dreaming, even though dreaming was the easiest part. Since we all have big goals, but very few dare to devote their entire lives to the pursuit of achieving them. That's why I decided to share this story. It teaches lessons I want to remember. Because the struggle of young Mario inspires me and reminds me that dreams must be pursued, conquered with dedication.
You choose the life you spend. You can do anything in the world. The only thing you have to do is dedicate yourself to a vocation with ferocity. You have to work hard.
The rest of the story is well known. Over the years, he wrote over 38 books, including novels, short stories, plays, essays, and memoirs. The last of them in 2023 at the age of 87. He never stopped writing, not even when he ran for president, nor when his marriages came to an end, not even when his dearest loved ones passed away. Literature was always his refuge, his drive, his destiny, the one that would lead him to receive many awards and recognitions. The greatest one, without a doubt, is the one he received on October 7, 2010, in Stockholm, Sweden, and before the attention of all Peruvians, the Nobel Prize in Literature.
Dear Mario Vargas Llosa, you have encapsulated the history of 20th century society in a popular tree of imagination. Neighbor, it has remained floating in the air for 50 years and still shines. The Svega Academy congratulates itself. Please come forward and receive this year's 3rd Nobel Prize in Literature from the Mother of Mother, Her Majesty A.
If you like the video, I invite you to check out other videos on the channel that you might also enjoy. See you in the next story. Goodbye.